Welcome to Drones Over Louisville by me, Robert. You can find me at rgc2005.com. Today we're taking our DJI Phantom stock out of the box with just a GoPro 3 white, just mounted to the bottom of the Phantom. We don't have our FPV gear yet, don't have the gimbal yet, been flying it for the last week. And I figured it was time to start working on my range estimation and work on some of those techniques and workflows, for when I'm up in the air and I want to get some pictures of interesting things. You'll see I'm flying over an empty parking lot. I have permission from the security guard to be there. It's late in the evening. You'll see a really nice subdivision pond there, a really cool walking track that I never knew was there. Never knew. I've lived out here my whole life. I never knew that walking path was there. So that's something to check out. Strip mall, condo complex. Right now, we're pretty high up. I like to shoot up to about 150, 120, 150 feet, depending on the day. Move around, see where I can see my LEDs, get oriented, to the area. And I'll bring the Phantom down because in case there's something goofy going on somewhere that I'm going to catch in the camera, I really don't want. But you'll see, I went through 3 batteries today. I'm only going to because I've gotten a good reference. This time of day, the LEDs are awesome as far as being able to tell where you're at and being able to turn those 90-degree turns and try to just track slowly to get some reference video. This time while I'm descending, I'm really making an effort not to get into that vortex syndrome, which causes the shake and the noticeable shudder in the rudders. We'll see now that we're down. I'm going to try to square up on my parking spot that I picked. And I did notice today was a bit of a rough day as far as GPS. I was only coming into about a 18-foot circumference as far as being able to land. There was no landing on a dime, and we did this with the other quad, and it was making the same landing errors. So I just believe that Homeland Security has dialed GPS accuracy down this week for whatever reason. Now I'm flying in the back of a very large church parking lot with the permission of one of the security guards. I like this place because it allows me to square up. I have a reference point with my parking spot. I've got a good 100 meters in either direction that are obstruction free once I get about 20 feet in the air. Now I'm just practicing forward and back, and I've flown enough with the Phantom without the gimbal, with it straight mounted, just velcroed and safety tied to the bottom of the Phantom on full tilt from the GoPro mount, that where I can go. And this is where range estimation is important. If I get it 20 or 30 meters away from me and I'm 20 feet off the ground, I'm going to be able to get that shot after I zoom in the software. And I think I'm getting pretty good at it. Now here I have every intention of my niece and nephew this fall are going to be playing soccer. They're 6. So, I want to be able to move up and down, the sideline, behind the crowd, of course, and so we can zoom in on those soccer shots and give the parents a little token, something they can look for, like for their kids, keep for posterity. So that was the what I'm trying to do here, just that lateral shift, slide left, slide right, try to make it as smooth as possible. I'm not really good at it. Now this time, I'm swinging back around, trying to keep the camera pointed away from me, just to record the outcome. And this is a pile of pylons, and I selected this because of their color, and it was a jumble. And I'm, testing out the GoPro image clarity. So when I zoom in, and it really is great. This is a GoPro white, not the black. We have a black, but we're saving that for when we get the gimbal pack and the FPV system. This is about, when we get in close here, I'm trying to get as close as I can, just above it, and I'm practicing just just straight up with a hard mount gimbal, trying to box around the target so I can reference it, look at everything, try to get a you can see up inside the cone, the overturned cones and small drums. We're about 3 to 4 feet off the ground. We stayed about 3 feet away. I was really happy with the way this worked out. I'm about 50 meters away, so I didn't want to get too close. I didn't want to get too low. Just trying to estimate that range to target, because it's really important, when you're flying around. These Phantoms do not take kindly to being crashed. You break an arm or a gimbal and you're out of action for 2 or 3 weeks so you can get the part in. We'll have another video about your go bag kit. You can see mine on the back of my truck there. Here I'm testing my, the GoPro's ability, from a hover, to get down pretty low. This is about 24 to 24. We're alternating between 24 and 48 inches off the ground. Trying to get in on the license plate so you can see the person, the plate on the front of my car. We're almost there. I'm only about 10 meters behind the GoPro at this time. I just want to test out, see what I can do. There's a buzz over the car. That was about 1 foot high. The big question I've been asking myself is, trying to estimate the capabilities of the camera. Now that I've flown about a bit at altitude, 60 to 90 feet up, here trying to, now I'm about 20 to 30 meters behind the Phantom, and I'm just trying to stay, even without the satellite, full GPS lock. It's kind of hard to hover, but just showing how stable the GoPro is, and this isn't upgraded in software or anything, how stable that GoPro is, on a Phantom flying in GPS mode. This is later on. I cut a whole lot out. I have 4 batteries for flying purposes. That decision was because, I got my first Phantom, the one we had to send back. It had 1 battery. You get 15 minutes of flight time and you're done for the day. 4 batteries. I'm getting ready. With this next royalty check I get, I'm getting ready to buy 2 more, which will give me 6 total batteries, which should give me an hour and a half, of flight time, which should be more than enough to cover, a youth sports football game or my niece and nephew's soccer game. Now I'm flying the GoPro. I'm about 10 feet off the ground. And one of my biggest concerns is flying blind. I don't have an FPV set up yet. That's coming in the mail. Has been estimating where I'm at against an object and trying to box around it and developing a good workflow for myself. That's why the camera juggles so much, and you'll see me shaking because that's the true amount of movement that's going in. These Phantoms are so stable they almost fly themselves. But like I said, I'm trying to get my range estimation to estimate how far I have to be to get around that tree without getting way out in left field like I was last week. And the cool thing about flying this thing and training yourself and using a big empty parking lot that has a lot of parking space markers, that helps you estimate distance significantly. I mean that, and then you have some objects that you don't want to get too squirrely. Of course, there are light poles and this really nice wishing well, but you have some objects you can focus on, you can train on. Um, I'm about 50 meters from the GoPro at this point. I'm trying to figure out, orient myself so I can get in close, kind of scooch in and get over it, take a nice picture. You'll see even in the low light with just the parking lot lights at this time that you do have a real good resolution and the GoPro kicks in. One thing I'm sure someone will say something about the red, the LEDs lighting up the red skid on my on the upper right. Well, I learned early on, and I did some research. I did some YouTube, and the Phantom Pilots forum is really an awesome resource for uh, learning how to fly and learning how to you know get down the basics. And here I went back up to 150 feet, and I'm looking over a subdivision pond with the fountain. And the reason I'm estimating, and I'll know more once I get the GPS tracker and the altimeter in, I'll be able to tell my height. But one of the reasons I want to look at this is see, just get a good idea of the resolution and what I can expect to see when I want to take a picture or I see something that I want to fly over at night. Just exactly what that GoPro is going to give me when I come back. Because when you're essentially flying blind, you've got to, as Clint Eastwood said, you've got to know your limitations. So at this point, the GoPro, I'm sorry, the Phantom is about 100 meters away from me. I'm trying to stay within the box. If you'll see the tree islands, all the way over to the next set of tree islands is about 100 meters. The next video, I'll pace it all off and mark it with some traffic cones and some tape, which give you a better idea. At night, without an FPV system or a pet tracker or some sort of locator, I highly recommend you stay over property that you don't have to jump a fence. If you're in a parking lot that you have permission to be in, you're on a piece of property that you have to be in, and you get up 90 to 150 feet, you're going to see more than enough. After this, I've learned here recently that you start losing resolution really quickly. It'll be a long time before I fly FPV at night. And right now, to be perfectly honest, until I get the equipment on the Phantom, I've got my finger on return to home in case it starts getting out of sight. And I won't let this thing out of my sight until I get that upgraded equipment on board, because nothing would suck worse than losing $1,500 worth of Phantom and camera at this point. Because I think this Drones Over Louisville project is really great. I've got 3 volunteers so far that, just guys and hopefully ladies someday that'll take their radio controlled planes and everybody and Phantoms and drones and quadcopters, you name it, even people with awesome views of stuff. There's just no place for people to share. There's some really great videos out there that people just keep to themselves, and that's what I'm hoping to do with this little project. Now here you'll see I'm trying to figure out, and I'm using the thumb to what I can see here above the lights, I could see the LEDs. And what I do is I know, in that 60 feet or 20 meters from where I stand when I take off, I know how big that phantom is against my thumb. And when I get it out to what I think is the edge of the parking lot or where I want it to be, you just reference your thumbnail to the size of the phantom. And if you're doing known distance, you train yourself by hovering over a spot that's a known distance. You can begin to figure out that reference point. I learned that years and years ago in Ranger School, and it's a really great tool. Back when I played golf, I could estimate range to pin within a meter. I played with guys who used their fancy golf laser range finders and everything. Yeah, now, you ever talked to an old forward observer, somebody who served in the military as an artillery observer? I mean, seriously, they can look at a target of known size, especially, and they can tell you almost to the meter how far that thing away is. Now here is just me, taking a look at my truck. I'm not going to show you my license plate because that's not fair. So again, we're about 5 meters back from the truck, and I'm trying to see what you can see inside it. Because I'm uploading this, of course, at much lower resolution, but you can almost, when you zoom in the GoPro software, you can almost see what's inside the vehicle. It's a really good resource. Now I'm back up underneath I'm underneath the GoPro right now. And I'm just trying to get settled up, and there's a little bit of a wind, and it's messing with being able to stand or being able to hover. But you can see you get a really good reference this time of night. It's about an hour after sundown, so it's pretty dark at this point with just parking lot lights. And I happened to pick the one spot that didn't have a light directly over it, so it's pretty good stuff. Now I'm shot up to about 90 feet, and the plan here is to go out beyond where I've been flying. I'll go all the way to the edge of the parking lot. I'll go about 200 meters. I'm sorry, at this point we're only about 100 meters away, a little over 100 meters away from the truck. And I'm walking with the Phantom, just trying to keep it 10 meters ahead of me. I'm going to bring her down, and if I'm correct, this is the point in the video where I hover, and then I'm going to test return to home. Even though I know it's a safe thing, and I've done it about 6 times in broad daylight where I can see the Phantom. It's time. You can see the blinking yellow lights where it's lost connection with the receiver. The Phantom's going to shoot up to about 60 feet. Not about, it's going to hover up to 60 feet. Now that's one thing I don't like, the 60 feet return to home, because while 60 feet will get you over 90% of the obstacles in the world, there are, here in Kentucky, in the Louisville area, there are trees all over the city, all over the county, and whole entire sections of woods that have multitudes of trees that are, upwards of 80 and 90 feet. So, and not to mention buildings, radio towers, you name it. need to. I've looked in the software. You can limit how far the Phantom goes away from you before it comes home. You can limit altitude, which I've done to the AMA radio or AMA FAA guidelines for radio controlled aircraft. You know, I put that ceiling on there for myself, but you can't adjust the return to home altitude, which is, to be perfectly honest, ridiculous. Now you can see all day long the Phantom had been doing this. Uh, it lands 2 parking spots or 18 to 20 feet to the left, or I mean, sorry, to the right of where it takes off from. One time it would take off and it would land to the left. One time it would take off and land to the right. Did a little bit of research because, you know, there have been times out at Tom Sawyer Park where I've hit return to home and it's almost landed right on this. If I picked this cross, it would have almost landed on it. So I know the GPS lock is good, but Homeland Security, you know, with an increased threat level, they can degrade GPS accuracy. So I think that might be what happens here. I don't think it's a lack of satellites because, you know, we have a huge UPS hub in the area, so it's not that. I'm well away from the flight path and everything else. I just think for whatever reason the GPS security is dialed down, or GPS accuracy is dialed down. And I'm sure someone could do some much more research on the topic. Now we're going into a hover, taking off, and this time I'm in the air and I'm resetting return to home. I'm resetting my home point, and I'm just testing that function. And making sure all the LEDs blink and everything, because I at this point I know GPS accuracy is off. So I just set up the return to home manually, and this time I'm gonna shoot way up in the air. I'm probably gonna shoot up to about, at this point, 150 feet, and I'm gonna go out a little bit further. Go out to the very edge of the parking lot because I don't have permission to be over there. That's Northeast Christian Church, for those of you. And that dark area in the upper left-hand corner, which I've never noticed this place before, I drive past it every day, is a super great figure-8 walking jogging track. It's kind of cool looking. I never noticed it. This is one of the good things about having a Phantom and looking at the aerial, you know, surveillance or aerial video or photography is I didn't know they had a public walking course there. They apparently have a walking track all the way around the place. I never noticed. I noticed that out at Ballard High School last week when I was out there. So once again, return to home, and this time I set it up on a target, 2 parking spaces over to the left, and here we come again. And dadgummit, once again, we're about 18 to 20 feet off. All day long, 18 to 20 feet off. To the left or to the right. So, I'm going to blame Uncle Sam and Homeland Security on this one. Now, we're coming to the end of the video. I'd like to thank you all for watching. And come back to Drones Over Louisville at rgc.com.